If you tell a girl she's pretty, she'll forget it almost instantaneously. But if you tell a girl she's fat, she'll believe that for the rest of her life. That's somewhat a quote that I heard from a teacher that had assigned a English activity to a grade 9 student. And that was a grade 9 student's quote that she came up with. And it stirred up a lot of thinking for me. And I wanted to reflect today about how we can support teens and preteens about just feeling more comfortable in their own body and developing a healthy relationship with food. So I'm Andrea Hallwegner, registered dietitian from Health Stand Nutrition, and we see lots of adolescent girls here, definitely some boys as well, with some very strained relationships with food and their overall body image. Maybe that's if they've been bullied, or maybe that's if they're working on recovery through an eating disorder. But certainly we see lots of messy emotions with teenagers here, and just trying to grow more confident and comfortable in their own skin. And so today's segment, I wanted to really dive into a common thing that might come up if you're a parent or an aunt, uncle, a cousin, a caregiver, a teacher, a coach. Sometimes we hear this from our teens, and the comment is this: I feel fat. And so I wanted to give you some thinking and percolation about how you might handle that question from what I've learned through both our clients, our parents, and certainly from a lot of the collaborative work we do with some wonderful psychologists that we partner with in helping our clients to recover from eating disorders. Because this comes up a lot, is what do we say when we hear that comes up? Because our hearts sink as a parent or as a caregiver when we hear those words. And so I got 4 things I really want to navigate today in thinking about how we can support teenagers in just growing a little bit more comfortably in their own body and in their food. And the first thing I want to dive into is, first of all, that fat is not a feeling. I want to give you some words around how you can handle that comment that comes up. Second is I want to talk about the whole influence of what you're saying and the choice of words and some of the things that we've heard along the way from our clients, and what has really set up a horrific relationship with body and food. And just to give you a sense as to sort of what our teens and tweens are certainly being subjected to now more than ever. The third thing I want to dive into is I want to help you get some words and some thinking around how you can normalize curves for your growing girls, certainly our growing guys as well, but it's almost the reverse for so many of our younger males that we've seen. They just feel a heck of a lot smaller than maybe some of their female counterparts. So I want to give you some ideas on what you can do, what you might say around normalizing growth in this really difficult phase of life for our teens. And the fourth thing I want to talk about is that kids learn what they live. I'm tied into a little bit of role modeling and just get you to ask yourself a few questions about how things are going for you, because we know that has such a strong connection for your teens as well. So again, I am going to be diving into all 4 of those points. First one being, fat is not a feeling. So when your teenager comes to you and says, I feel fat, how you might consider responding is saying, well, fat is not a feeling, just like the color green is not a feeling. So what was going on before your comment about I'm feeling fat? And really try and dig into what was the pre-story or the backstory that was starting to unfold a little bit before that comment was even made. One of the things I've learned so often from psychologists that we work with is really our ability to help a preteen or a teen name emotion is so useful, because we take for granted that they know what they're feeling. And that's a skill that we all have to learn how to figure out as we grow up. And, you know, kids at a very, very young age, you can start doing this with them as well, because when they can name an emotion, they can tame an emotion. So that's name it to tame it. That's from Dr. Daniel Siegel, author of The Whole Brain Child, a fantastic read for all parents and caregivers. I'd highly recommend it. Really, really great stuff in the Whole Brain Child book. Whether you got young kids or preteens or older adolescents in the home and you're trying to make sense of what's going on with all of their messy emotions, Daniel Siegel, international world-renowned expert if you want to dive into some more thinking and understanding about how to understand your child and your teens overall brain patterns. But again, if your teen comes to you and says, I feel fat, just like you can't, just like the color green is not a feeling, help them to articulate what that feeling is. Sometimes you need to give them the words so they can figure out, is it mad? I'm sad. I'm feeling really nervous or scared or anxious. And the more you can help them sort of verbalize what that emotion is and then learn where that emotion shows up physically in their body. Is it a heavy heart? Is it a knot in the back of your stomach? Is it a crunched up shoulders and feeling neck tightness? The more you can help them, again, name that emotion, it will help to tame that emotion. So really, really great. The other thing we have to help our kids and teens learn is that emotions change just like the weather. And so oftentimes as emotions are so big and coming on so strong, in the teenage years particularly, what we need to be able to do is help remind them that just like the weather changes, our emotions are going to come and go as well. And it won't always feel so big. So if you can just be there with them through that bigness of that really uncomfortable emotion that is there in the room, it will start to dissipate. I think, so much of what I've learned from the psychologists we work with adolescent girls here is that our job as both health professionals, as parents, as caregivers, is not to try and fix it for them right there and then and give them troubleshooting tips. When a big emotion comes up, it's really helping them to just even decide what it is, and then with no need to necessarily troubleshoot it, just be there with it. I think we've all been on the receiving end of actually having someone go into brainstorming about, have you tried this? You should do that. When really all we wanted them to do was just be there with us when something was really crappy and sucked. So our teens want the same thing from us as well. They just want to feel heard. They want to feel seen. And so reminding them that, well, fat's not a feeling. So what was happening before that statement you just made? Was it like, did you have a fight with someone? Whatever is going on, try and dig into that backstory. And that's where you're going to have a lot more success than trying to say something like, oh, no, you're not fat. Well, nobody really finds that helpful and supportive. And I can guarantee this will give the classic teenage girl eye roll when those words come out of your mouth. So that's one thing out of the 4 points I want to go through here today. And by the way, if you want a little bit more information about this topic, I'm going to be putting up a link in the comments here where you can go and read a full blog post on this, this segment as well, in case you want to share this video or you want to share the blog post for some more tips and reading. I would so appreciate that. Second point I want to talk about here is the influence of words. And so I started this video off with a quote, and that quote was, if you tell a girl she's pretty, she won't believe it. If you tell a girl she's fat, she'll believe it for the rest of her life. This quote almost makes me teary because this is certainly so what we see in our office from so many of our girls that have had such uncomfortable comments in their history show up for them. And that quote, by the way, was by a grade 9 girl that was putting together a piece for her English teacher. And her English teacher happened to share that with me, and I wrote it down because it was so good. And it really articulates some of the challenge that we have in raising stronger girls in today's challenging environment, especially with social media. So I want to talk a little bit more about the influence of words. And I want to give you some thinking about what maybe our teens are subjected to. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things we've heard in our office here as dietitians. My ballet instructor told me to suck in my belly because it was hindering clean lines. My brother called me thunder thighs since my legs were bigger than his. My mom told me I wasn't allowed to have dessert, but my other siblings who were skinnier seemed to be allowed and not monitored. My coach told me that I needed to lose 5 pounds before competition. I was always taller than other kids and they teased me about being big. I wish someone had told me there's a difference between being big and being tall. It wasn't it wasn't the words that hurt, it was the lack of words. I didn't get told I was good enough. This also makes me a little teary because these are true stories from our clients here. And we so often hear such awful things that we think, oh, well, maybe a coach told them that or a friend of them told them that, and we hope that our teens forget that, but sometimes they really don't, and it really sticks with them. So my challenge to you as a parent or someone listening to this video either live, thank you for those of you joining me live, as well as for those of you that are going to watch this replay later, is the next time you are sitting down for dinner with your teen, and I so hope you are because that's such a great time to have interesting conversations. And secondly, if you're not a parent, I'm sure you've got some sort of preteen or teen in your life. If you've got the opportunity to ask them this question, I would be so curious what their responses might be. I want you to read out the quote that I've written in the comment, the posting there, and share with them that quote by the grade 9 girl. If you tell a girl she's pretty, she won't believe it. If you tell a girl she's fat, she'll believe it for the rest of their life. And I want you to just open up a discussion and ask them, what do you think? Ask them for their reflections on what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they might say to a friend that says, I feel fat, or someone that might be struggling with some sort of negative comment about their body. Open up a wonderful discussion, because I think the more we're talking about this, the more hope we have in being able to buffer some of the negative things that are happening. So that is my challenge to you, is have a fascinating conversation. And if you do, please loop back with me and let me know what unfolds. I'll be very curious to learn what unfolds there. Number 3, I want to talk about normalizing curves in my 4-point challenge here, or my 4 points in general. The third one is normalizing curves. And so oftentimes what we have to work fairly hard at in our office with our adolescent girls really struggling with food relationship issues, bullying, dieting behavior, hating their body. What we work really hard to do is help to normalize what normal growth and development for girls looks like. And the same goes for those of you that are watching this that have sons and boys in your life. We have to help them normalize that oftentimes boys are just not going to fill out and shoot up at the same rate as their peers in their classroom. So they're going to be like a foot shorter. They're going to be way skinnier and have no shape compared to our curvaceous girls coming up. So really helping to normalize and even show them some of the science and the information on like what does normal growth look like at their age is so helpful. So throughout adolescence, a female's body often changes so fast that their mental brain can't keep up to the physical changes that are going on. And that's oftentimes why we see so much challenge for younger girls that have kind of gone from a stick-like boy-like structure to having more body fat, to having more curves, to cellulite showing up on their hips and their butt for the first time. It can be really overwhelming for their brain. And so not talking about it isn't helpful to your teen in your life. You want to really, even before, as you start to see puberty setting in, really starting to have conversations about like, it can be kind of really weird to have all these changes happening in your body. You know, and reflect on maybe what you remember, or reflect on, you know, just some little tidbits about just making it normal, that this is all part of, like, it takes a lot for us to get used to growing into this new body. Sometimes within like a year, all of this stuff happens. So remind them again, the more we get to hang out in that new shape and that new body, the easier it gets to be able to tolerate it. And just be sure too that you've got proper fitting clothes for your teens as they go through all those changes. It's very, very traumatizing when pants are tight and things aren't fitting. No one likes that. For teenagers, this is absolutely demoralizing because of so much sort of focus on image as they go to school every day. So really working hard to normalize is my tip on that one there. I have another little quote that you might find interesting, and this one's actually from a client of ours' boyfriend, and my client had shared this a few years ago, which I loved. And she said, her boyfriend said it best: guys are not like dogs, they don't chase sticks. And so, what I want to illustrate here is the fact that, yes, normal body image absolutely needs to come from within. But when we are surrounded by family members, parents, siblings, and boyfriends, girlfriends, these types of things that are help providing those messages about the fact that curves are in for girls, the stickly, skinny, waif-like look is out, I think that that really can, just help us be a little bit more comfortable in our own skin as things are changing in our body so much there. Okay, now tip number 4. Ooh, this is a juicy one. We have lots of conversations with moms and dads in our office here. Tip number 4 is kids learn what they live. So I'm going to ask you some questions here. And I want you to think about your own relationship with food and your body. I want you to think about, what am I doing that might be diety, that might be weight focused, that might be sort of body focused, that really is role modeling not the right image that I want my kids to be doing as they grow up. And so oftentimes people will say, well, I don't think my kids know that I'm on a fad diet, skipping carbs. Yeah, they do. They're absolutely aware of what you're doing. Even your younger kids will know, mom isn't eating that. She eats a separate meal. Not good stuff. Kids learn what they live. And so the best way that you can set your adolescent girl up for success is help role model what balanced eating looks like. And by balanced eating, this is where we're talking nothing extreme. We're not talking extreme clean eating and ketoing and paleoing and taking out carbs and never eating sugar, banning certain foods from your house. This is all a packaged diet destined for your kid to have a confused relationship with food. So we want to model eating lots of geeky, healthy, nutritious foods, of course, but we also want to model what a moderate, balanced living approach to eating really looks like. So if your kid never sees you eat birthday cake, or your kid never sees you buy cookies or make cookies and eat them yourself, it's sort of a weird mixed message that it's okay for you, but not for me. So we really want to role model that real balanced living perspective when it comes to overall nutrition. The second thing I want you to think about in terms of a question is, am I stuffing uncomfortable emotions with food? So maybe it's not dieting kind of stuff that's going on for you. The other thing that we tend to see in our office with so many of our clients struggling with their weight and having followed so many diets is tons of emotional eating. So either stuffing emotion or starving emotion through food. So if that stuff is going on for you, it so commonly goes on for so many of the clients that we see. I want you to reach out for some help and get that under control. So sometimes that's psychology appointments, sometimes that's dietitian appointments, or a little bit of both. But the more you can really dig into, okay, I got to deal with some of this just unpleasant emotion where I'm eating when I know it's not true physical hunger. I'm eating to kind of numb out or sort of mask uncomfortable emotion. Again, kids learn what they live. If they see you doing that when things are stressful or you're sad or mad or angry or depressed, that becomes sort of a role modeled way for them to think, okay, that's how I deal with uncomfortable emotion as well. So this is no shame. If this is going on, this is not a point to beat yourself up over another thing not going well. But I want you to know that there's help available if that's something that's going on. And you want to, help your kid. We need you to help yourself first before you can probably help your kid. That tends to be what we see in so many of the families that we work with here. Oftentimes, if we're working with a teenage girl that's struggling with body image or eating disorder behavior, one of the first things that we need to investigate is what's going on with mom and dad or parents or caregivers at home, so we can just really make sure that we're cleaning up their relationship with food and body. Otherwise, it's really hard to support their own teenager in the home because things are so conflicted themselves. So we have to tend to approach these things as a full family affair, which parents don't usually like. So kids learn what they live. You know, and I think when we think about not just the food end of things, really modeling what does balanced activity look like as well. So again, we see clients that sit on both extremes. We see people that are completely sedentary and maybe not getting any activity. Again, if we want our teens to be healthy in their relationship with exercise and food, then we want to also be role modeling what an active family living looks like. It doesn't need to be extreme. It can be walking the dog and family bike rides or whatever. But again, role modeling some amount of moderate activity is so useful. And then on the other extreme, if exercise is ramped up way too high and you're obsessively tracking things on phones and you're never taking rest days, and if we asked your family member if you had a healthy relationship with exercise, what would they say? Would they say, oh no, mom's always at the gym, or mom is always exercising, or my dad has to run every day, or he feels too overwhelmed and anxious at work? So if that kind of stuff is going on where we need exercise absolutely as the #1 coping mechanism for stress, again, we got problems. This isn't a good role modeling for what we want to teach our kids in having a balanced relationship with fitness as well. And one of the things that we always talk about here as well, outside of food, outside of fitness, when we're having conversations about our overall weight and body, oftentimes the best sort of analogy to give kids and give teens, if you hear them make a comment about size, is just, really normalizing again that just like we have different eye colors, or just like we have different shoe sizes, we all have different body sizes, and really coming at it from a place of size acceptance, both within your family as well as within how we perceive other people outside of our family. So really key there on size acceptance. So those are my 4 tips. I'm hoping you found this somewhat helpful and insightful. So curious to hear from you in the comments about one thing that resonated today in the discussion that we had here, whether you're watching live, thanks to you for those of you that stayed with me. And for those of you that are watching the replay after, as most of my viewers do, love to hear with you one takeaway, one thing that you learned, and so curious if you'll take my challenge to have a discussion with a teen in your life. I think would be so curious to see what they come up with for information there. So I'm Andrea Hollwegner, registered dietitian at HealthStand Nutrition. If we can help you or your family about anything related to food relationship stuff, body image, and just how to create that healthier relationship with food, weight, and sometimes over-exercising, we see that too here, certainly come and just even private message me or send us an email or phone the office, and we can book a time to just hop on a phone call and chat about what's going on and see if we might be a good fit for you in the nutrition services that we offer here. After this video, I'm also going to be putting up a URL web link for a full blog post on this subject in case you wanted to grab any of the key points that I talked about today. And so curious to hear from you in the comments about what was helpful. So thanks again. I will see you next time for my next video. Take care.